to your intro.
Yes, I noticed you were scribbling furiously while you were listening to it. So I figured you were going to talk
That's
about
right.
it.
First, our democracy is not crumbling. It's nothing crumbling but our democracy. Second,
that's from your perspective.
Always.
Because you're in the ruling party.
You're asking me, yes, that's why I'm here, to share my perspectives. Right?
Okay.
Secondly, there is no constitutional crisis in Nigeria today. There was a constitutional crisis in River State up until the declaration of the state of emergency. And that constitutional crisis was initiated, authored, and precipitated by the governor of River State, Governor Fubara. Now, I've listened very carefully to a lot of analysts and speakers who have come through, your program and other programs, quite frankly, around our television space. And I think that, yes, some of them are well-intentioned, but the problem is that they simply choose to gloss over the critical, factual, predicate of this crisis. Because if you get that wrong, then, forever you will reach a wrong, conclusion or understanding of what is playing out. What happened in River State? A governor was elected. Shortly after his election, this governor, Governor Fubara, sought to take control, basically, by replacing the Speaker of the Rivers House of Assembly. Some governors do that because they want to be more comfortable with, people that they prefer who are in charge. Now, unfortunately, these members of the Rivers House of Assembly stood their ground. That, look, you know what? Listen, we're here, we're elected by our people to represent them. We stand our ground. When that failed, when that effort to replace the Speaker failed, this governor made a backflip and decided to dismantle the legislature. Shortly after that, he proceeded to destroy the House of Assembly complex. Now, let me just, take a breath here.
Yeah, because that's not quite how it happened.
Yeah, that's right. Because if you don't get this point, anything else you think or say is misplaced. It's like putting something on nothing and expect it to stand. You can only stand on your emotions and speak from the abundance of your emotions, but you won't be speaking from the facts. Now, we're talking about River State, and the question you've asked me is about the declaration of emergency rule. But the real question we should be talking about is whether or not, from the day Governor Fubara destroyed the House of Assembly, whether there was in fact a government, constitutionally speaking, in that state. And my position is that there was no government in River State from the day that this governor made a conscious decision to demolish a branch of government. Governor Fubara destroyed and utterly abolished the legislature from that day. And Charles, you are one of Nigeria's leading professional, media, people. What is a democracy with a governor without a legislature? You see, now I would have actually come here today and I'll be very calm, as I am always, if those who are today spewing a lot of, power from their words, if they had expressed just a quarter of outrage at the time that Governor Fubara destroyed the Rivers House of Assembly, if they had only just, issued some condemnation and said, look, Governor, this is actually a bit, extreme. They didn't do that. Everybody was quiet. And today, they have found their voices to speak to the declaration by the president of a state of emergency in River State. Now, that is intellectually dishonest on the part of a lot of those who speak today, and which is why I don't take them very seriously. Now, let me just, take that a little further. After the governor did that, he not only demolished the assembly, he locked them out. He froze them in a package and cast them aside as though they didn't exist, as though our constitution never intended to provide for a legislative body in River State. He completely froze the allowances, he froze the allocation, he froze every penny flowing to the assembly. And then, not only that, Governor Fubara slapped democracy in the face by, anointing 2-3 people to be his legislature in preference to a democratically elected institution of, the House of Assembly in River State. And then proceeded to govern unconstitutionally, and govern illegally, and govern unlawfully in River State. Now, for more than nearly 14 months, that was going on. These people who are busy bouncing around and throwing words around, empty words for that matter, were silent. They were completely, they were silent. They spoke nothing, Charles, about this situation I'm describing. Because, look, I'm a constitutional lawyer. And when I see a wrong, I will admit it. And,
And you don't see a wrong here.
No, we're not there yet, Charles. We're not on that point yet. I'm building up to that point, and I will answer that question.
You can't take the entire.
I can't. I'm not taking that time. But
so let me since you're taking it
straight.
Yeah, but since you're taking it in bits, let me take it in bits as well.
Yes.
You talked about the fact that the governor destroyed the building, the State Assembly building, and kind of moved the people off, and you portrayed it as though this was something he set out to do as a way of trying to gain leverage over the State Assembly. But you do forget that there was an attack on that building. There was a bombing attack on that building, which kind of rendered it almost unusable. And the governor then proceeded to destroy the building. Bring it down, demolish it, with a plan of rebuilding it, which he said at the time. What evidence is there linking the governor, Fubara, to the attack on the State House of Assembly? He demolished the Assembly building because it had been bombed by hoodlums a couple of months before he ordered the demolition.
Okay, Charles. In a constitutional democracy, a governor bears responsibility for things that happen in his state. Now, you said the building was bombed by hoodlums. Charles, have you reported on Arise Television what was done by way of investigation by this governor about the attack you discuss of the State House of Assembly? What reports have you reviewed of the governor's initiative to investigate those who attacked that building and to bring them to justice? Are you telling me that a governor who commands the Attorney General, who has access to the police and all the law enforcement agencies, could not commission, as the chief security officer, an investigation that will yield some clue or some report, some understanding of the circumstances in which that was bombed? He didn't do that, Charles. And not doing that, as far as I am concerned, is clearly, points, unmistakably to his soiled fingers in that, initiative.
Well,
so you know what? That's a sidekick.
Right.
The point is that there was no investigation. There was no one ever, charged with that dastardly act of, bombing of that thing. And then he ordered the demolition as though, the bombing was in fact, preordained.
Well, I have to say this. There are innumerable instances, both on the federal and the state level, of commissions of all kinds of.
We're not talking about the federal level.
Of insecurity.
Don't bring the federal into this conversation.
I'm just saying. Well, it is part of the federal is part of it because the federal has intervened.
We get to the federal, yes.
But what I'm really interested in here is the fact that as a lawyer yourself, because all these things are peripheral.
They're not.
No.
They're central.
Hold on. The issue here.
They're central, Charles.
The issue here is the process by which you arrived at the declaration of a state of emergency, the things that led to it, and whether those things are legally justified. As a lawyer yourself, sworn to protect and uphold the rule of law, how can you justify the actions taken not only by the president in imposing a state of emergency on River State and suspending a governor when there is no constitutional provision to do so, but also the National Assembly in using a voice vote to approve it? I'm curious to know, because you are a constitutional lawyer.
Yes, I am.
So I'm curious to know what your reaction is.
And I'll give my reaction, Charles. Now, my reaction flows logically and justifiably from everything I've said so far. And I think that our viewers and our listeners should bear that in mind. For about 14 months, there was no government in Rivers State.
Yeah, but can you deny the fact that those people who you said were members of the State Assembly had vacated their position? They announced that they were vacating their position. They signed affidavits to the effect that they were vacating their position. On what basis would you say that the governor is to blame for that? I don't understand.
Now, when members of parliament, like the River State House of Assembly, when these are not just your everyday people, they're elected officials who were sponsored by political parties. So when they decide that they want to decamp, it's not as simple as somebody taking a microphone and say, I am leaving my party. There are legally mandated procedures that you must follow to effectively decamp, to legally, recognizably decamp from one party to the other. As I am here now, I'm the national spokesman of APC. If I sit here and I say to you, Charles, as of today, I'm no longer APC spokesman, or I'm no longer a member of APC, that says nothing. You know, this is national television. But I must go back and file a letter to my ward chairman informing him of my intention to decamp from APC, to leave the party, to resign from the party. If I don't do that, I don't care how many times I tell you here today that I'm no longer a member of APC. That is of no effect whatsoever. So, you see, speaking about decamping and decamping legally, decamping effectively are two different things. And I think that the confusion is that people just think that because somebody takes a microphone and says I'm leaving, just like I told you, if I were to make that announcement today, you would think I've left APC. No, I have not left APC. Because, as far as the procedure is concerned, I have not perfected, I have not instrumented my, announcement of leaving. So in other words, don't forget that when that assembly was demolished, assuming, without conceding, that these assemblymen were in fact intended on leaving, there was no longer a facility by which they could in fact, perfect their intention, assuming that was the case, of their leaving the party. There was no such facility because Governor Fubara had completely obliterated that space where, in fact, that could have been done. You see, Charles, let me tell you, again, you can't go from here to here without, proper, process. Now, back to your question, because I think